Hello, family and friends in Belmont and those participating via Zoom from, now listen, California, Colorado, Virginia, Germany, different places in Germany, all over Germany, Austria and France, and Africa. Where in Africa? Africa's big. Nigeria, of course. Okay, so Martin's family is with us as well. That's wonderful. We're here to celebrate Lotte's life, and we're also here to say goodbye to her. As Lotte wished for Hansa Service 2015, there were certain Christian elements that were important to her. So we decided we're going to incorporate those into the service because we didn't have the opportunity to ask her if anything will be different. It's a particular psalm, it's particular prayers. Unfortunately, the minister who was with her through hospice can't be with us today because he's down at Half Moon Bay helping people in his wife's church who have been displaced. But he said, I'll give you the outline, just do it yourselves. So we're gonna wing it a bit. So we will also be hearing a little bit from those who are close to Lotte. And we have some contribution from some of the people also who are joining us online. So thank you for being with us. So I will read you the prayer of invocation. God who creates and recreates us, God who laughs and weeps with us, God who walks with us each step of the way, carrying us when our strength fails. We ask that you be with us today as we gather to remember and say goodbye to Lotte. Let us rejoice in the gift you gave us through her life and remember her as a blessed part of our lives. Amen.
I'll be reading from Psalm 91, one of the favorite psalms of Mother Lotte. Lord, you have been our dwelling place in all generations. Before the mountains were brought forth, you had formed the earth and the world. From everlasting to everlasting, you are God. You return man to dust and say, return, you children of men. For 1,000 years in your sight are but yesterday when it is past. In the nighttime, you carry them away with flood. They as dream like renewed grass in the morning. In the morning, it flourishes and grows up. In the evening, it fades and withers. Satisfy us in the early morning with your mercy, that we may rejoice and be glad all days. Let your work be displayed to us and your glory to our children. Let the beauty of the Lord our God be upon us and establish the work of our hands among us. Yes, establish the work of your hands. The words of the Lord.
Okay, we had some contributions from those of you who are online, and we're just going to read a few of these. For example, from the grandchildren who cannot be here. And there I wish to say a special greeting from Andy Dolezalek. I can't find it right away here. Andy got married, as most of you would know, and his wife is expecting a baby. And guess when? Now, sort of. Anytime from now. This is going to be the continuation of life. Right? It's very, very symbolic. And Andy and Chelsea send their greetings and say their last happy memory of Lotte, smiling, was when they said, guess what, Oma? You're going to be a great grandmother for our baby. And that smile lingers on in their memory. The next youngest grandchild said, this is going to be German. Wenn ich an Oma denke, kommt mir ihr wunderschöner Garten in Erinnerung. Egal, ob ich im botanischen Garten bin oder zu Hause an den Baum pflanze. Immer wieder denke ich an Oma. Es sind Erinnerungen, die in mir, die in uns immer weiter leben werden. And how about you read Ricky and Beata?
Okay, so Rick, who is in San Diego still, I believe, is flying, which makes it even harder for him to be on the Zoom. I'll always remember and cherish the passion and appreciation for the arts Oma instilled in me. She would challenge and encourage me to be creative through drawing, painting, and later photography. To this day, I still enjoy photography and think of her when I'm able to enjoy that hobby. And Beate, Tante Lotte, Kunstliebe Philotropin, mit viel Lust an weltlichen Genüssen und Lachen, Sinn für Humor, Komik, unkonventionell, spontan, geistig, flexibel, gleichzeitig tief verwurzelt im hessischen Friedberg und der deutschen Sprache. So you might have caught some words in there, even though that was German, like Humor and unkonventionell. These are very difficult things that people have said in various things they sent to us about Lotte, that she had a lot of humor, that she was unconventional. And these are things that Beate, my cousin, remembers about her. And Beate and Dietrich, my other cousin from my mother's side, are living in Hessen, which is where my mother was born and where her family comes from. You're going to add something?
I was just going to say, Beate was the one who not only said humor, but she had a sense for the tragic comic, which was sort of very special. We did laugh in a lot of situations that were difficult because she said, how are we else supposed to be able to deal with this? So that was a specialty of hers.
Look, tell me what you see. Listen, tell me what you hear. Those were the words that more than anything else, Mom drilled into me. And I think into all of us, and even in Ricky, you heard it again in the second generation. Because wherever we were, that was what she asked. She took us everywhere. And she never said, this is good, this is bad. She just said, look and listen. And for her, what really mattered the most is that we were exposed to a huge, huge number of impressions. She took us to art galleries and museums and to parks, and it was always look and listen and absorb what you see. And she felt very strongly that only after we had seen and heard everything could we begin to express our own sense of art and style. And that's probably the thing I remember most, is it wasn't judgmental. It was just, you develop your own, but I want you to have seen everything before you do it. And it was perhaps because of her own doing that, that very, very late in her life, she became such an exquisite sculptress. She had no training formally in art. She just spent a lot of time looking at faces and seeing the people in those faces, and then a desire to express what she saw in those faces in her sculptures. And I think that comes through very, very clearly. So in that regard, Mom always had a style that was completely her own, and one that she was completely comfortable. As children, the three of us were presented an interesting juxtaposition, because Dad, very quietly, without ever demanding it, set an extremely high standard for us in terms of dedication, attention to detail, understanding, and integrity. In a lot of ways, it was a standard that we struggled throughout our entire lives to live up to. But Mom was the one who taught us to express who we were, how we related to other people, and how, even as we struggled to meet Dad's standards, we were accommodating to those who didn't meet those standards. Set a high bar, but do so with charm and style, and how to appreciate the gifts of life that ultimately became easier as we began to meet the high expectations that both of our parents had set for us. As a child, I think the ultimate compliment we can pay to our parents is to say that we hope we can be to our children what they were to us. Fortunately, the boys that Carrie and I have raised got a chance to see that directly from them. But hopefully they saw it too, reflected in us, and will now reflect it to their children. And by doing so, give ongoing life to a beautiful legacy.
I'm going to say something not quite as fancy. So my brothers and I grew up in a house in houses, I would say, that were full of things, large and small, old and new. All of these things had a meaning, obvious or hidden. Sometimes I would look for something in one of these houses, which could be a chore, I suppose, so many things. And on the way, I would find hundreds of little things that told me stories. The button of a dress I had as a little girl, an unfinished bit of knitting from our grandmother. Years later, many years later, I would rediscover these things on Lotte's bottle dolls. Did any one of you ever get a bottle doll? Big cider bottles, and she would sew fancy dresses around them and make a head on the top, and they would carry little gifts, tiny gifts. And she made these for people at Christmas and include all these little things. And I would think about what the stories these dolls told, wearing all of these things, and how a piece of Lotte's history was being woven into new life and now touching other lives. It was like the many people that came to our house. Everyone had a story and a unique personality and was eager to meet others there. Lotte was now collecting people and interweaving their lives. We also had tons of books, and I loved to go exploring in these books. One favorite was a book about the human body, which had transparent pages in the middle, one with a skeleton, one with veins and arteries, and so on. Recently, thinking about my mother, who she was and how she impacted the world, I thought about these books and those pages. And I thought, this is actually what people are like. Everyone looking inside sees different pages with fascinating details. Every page is totally different, but they fit together. And when you put all the transparent pages on top of each other, you have a complete picture, which is truly wonderful. But you can't see it all at once. And you can't see through it anymore because it's so complex. So you choose a few pages at a time and look at them. And maybe everyone chooses different pages or sees different pages. This is people, and this is Lotte. Ambitious young woman, adventurer moving through life, mother who knew her kids were the best. And dare you say contrary. Supporting wife who also developed an independent identity so strong that no one could overlook how special she was. Loving mother, aunt, grandmother, neighbor who always kept the door open. Like probably most of us, Lotte set out on one path looking for something, and then she branched off, often unexpectedly, and found herself in new waters, navigating them with tremendous energy. Lotte was searching and finding, and above all, collecting, combining, and creating. She was making her life and our lives more colorful, more beautiful, and more worth living. So let us look into ourselves and over to others and see the impact of Lotte. We are now the bottle dolls, wearing buttons and ribbons and little gifts and carrying what was Lotte with us through our lives. Thank you, Lotte.
Eva said she was going to be less formal than Stephan. The youngest, of course, is going to be even less formal. Kind of wing it. So when Oma Lotte turned 101, Christy pointed out, that makes her like something like 1 in a million for the number of people to reach the age of 101. And later I'll run a video with her partying away and blowing out her candles. But then I thought about it, how else was she unique? Her parents always told me that she came home as a child with bruised knees and elbows and hands because she was always running around like a crazy one. But she also is one of the few people that got a master's degree at the university. So then I looked up how many people born in 1921 actually achieved a master's degree. And then when I figured out from statistics how many of those were women, Lotte was not really 1 in a million, she was close to 1 in a billion. So she was rather unique as a woman. She was very interested in setting that tone. I still remember when Time Life magazine came to interview her about her exhibition at the National Arboretum. They turned to my dad and said, "So, how does it feel to be married to a famous woman?" She loved it, and this is also why she so loved Christy, Natasha, Vivian, and Serena, because these are 3 girls and their mother that are very independent, and she saw in them what she liked to see in women, very strong. But to riff on what my brother said about look, listen, learn, for me it was the perspective she taught us to have. When I was a little boy, she volunteered in an orphanage in Washington. She'd take me along and she dropped me in with the kids. So I was just one of the boys in the orphanage, and I learned their perspective. And you all know how much she loved to garden. And one day in Virginia, I saw her in the back patio where we had bricks, pulling the weeds out from the bricks. And I was shocked. My mom, who loves plants, was killing plants. I said, "Mom, what are you doing?" And she says, "I'm pulling out the weeds." And so I asked her, "What is a weed?" And she said, "It's a plant that is where it doesn't belong." So then I thought, okay. So if there were rows between the bricks, would it be a weed that would need to be pulled? And she said, yes. And so how we perceive things is whether or not we choose to think they belong, rather than the identity. A rose here is a beautiful thing, a rose there isn't. The other perception for me that was the most powerful one is going to church with her on a Sunday, and I remember Father Underwood was giving a sermon, and a mother had a baby, and the baby was just screaming its head off, must have had an earache or something. And everybody's like rolling their eyes and glaring at this poor mom, except one person. And that was Mom. And she was beaming like you wouldn't believe. She was so happy. And on the ride home, I'm like, boys, little 6-year-old boy, why? Why was everybody else so upset? Why were you so happy? She said, a baby crying, especially in church, is the voice of God. So she chose to see this thing that annoyed everybody else as a thing of beauty. And the lesson that I took away from this that carries with me, and I hope to bring to others, is how we perceive things is our choice. The perspective we have, the judgment we make, is us. Are we upset with the baby or the mother for crying? Or do we see the beauty and the joy and the new life that Chelsea and Andy will be experiencing? And they will hear the baby crying, and I'm hoping they're going to see the beauty and the joy and not think, oh my God, right? So this is sort of what my mom has left me with, and I'm doing part with all of you, is see the beauty. It is your choice on how you perceive others and other things, whether those are plants or humans. Thank you.
I think of you every morning, dream of you every night. Darling, I never be lonely whenever you are in sight. Oh, Lottie, I love you for sentimental reasons. I hope you do believe me and say we'll never part. Your little heart desires these things I do, 'cause I'm so in love with you. If I were a businessman, I'd sit behind the desk. I'd be so successful. Birthday, dear Lottie. Happy birthday to you. Okay, one more time before you go. One more time. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, Lottie. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you.
All right. Can I have your, so I can take a video, both of you. Once again, from the staff management of this beautiful place, we would like to greet everybody, Lottie. Happy birthday! You may blow the candle now, bro. You may blow the candle now. All right. Any wish? Lottie, happy birthday, 101 years. One more time. Woo! You can do that one more. Happy birthday. You can do various tricks. I wish I had a
Bye, Lottie.
was out. Yeah. Yeah.
Hello.
Ze niet te geloven. Ja,
Hallo Bello.
ja. So, nasse Aufnahme.
101. Jeez.
Okay, so we have today with us Jay, who was my best friend in high school and was very much into our family and into mom. And just by chance, she moved into the Bay Area, I think before my parents did. Yeah. So they met a lot when they were here, and for me, it was lucky to be able to visit them all at once. So Jay's going to say a couple of things.
My dad told me when tigers die, they leave their skin behind. When people die, we leave our names behind. I was about 12 years old. I figured he was just telling me to study hard and make something of myself. But today, as I think about Lata and her life, my reflections go in a different direction. I think the memories we leave behind are the tiger's skin. Memories invite reflections. They impact you. They sometimes offer lessons, inspirations. Our memories, our reflections, the inspirations, they can be very powerful because they're all so personal. What impact has Lata's life had on mine? 3 things: aeoniums, adore, and Colorado. Aeoniums, large succulents Lata gave me, are still thriving in my garden. But even a larger lesson I got from her beautiful garden was to create beauty in my everyday surroundings like she did. Unfortunately, I'm not as artistic as she is, but who knows? Maybe she thought the same. Monet's talented, but I'm not. The lesson for me is to express myself freely, to experiment, and not pay attention to what others think. The joy of seeing your creations is like little bursts of sunshine from your own little sun. Adore, freestanding and on the front porch, each panel painted by Lata. She put it there intentionally to invite curious neighbors to stop by and chat. At age 80, she wasn't going for adjusting. She was all in for thriving to this new move all the way across the country. She said she needed to make connections with people, especially younger people. Lata's word reminds me to strive to the same, no matter where I am or how old I am. Colorado. I almost blurted out, "You gotta be kidding." Even for Lata, 94 seemed old to make that kind of a transition, but her excitement was very clear. Then she said, Jay, I'm 94 years old. I have a life to live. I'll always remember that moment, what she said and what I told myself. No matter how old I am, remember to choose how I'm going to live my life and not lose the excitement for living. Tigers die and leave their skin behind. People die, we leave our names behind. Lata, your name, my memories of you. I'm glad you left them for me. I'm very thankful to have been part of your world, and you shall forever be part of mine.
Thanks. I made some notes about some of the thoughts I want to share with you all. And excuse me. And I realized I started the note by writing down Oma. And I realized I've never called her anything but that except for the first time. I think the first time I met her was in '94 when Chris and I were neighbors, and he said, let's go out for dinner, my mom is visiting. And we walked down to University Avenue in a German restaurant called Elbe, I think. And it was just an amazing dinner. A couple of things just strike out to me. One was her curiosity. I mean, till today, I don't think anybody has asked me about India, about my background as much as Oma did on that night and till forever. So yeah, it's Oma, it's always been Oma. And sorry. I think both you, Eva and Stephan talked about listening, and she was always curious and really listening. I mean, that's something that struck out. Over the years, when she moved here, Vinette and I were married, we would have a lot of impromptu parties. Then when we had kids, Oma was there a few hours after they were born for each of their birth. So that was very touching. Sorry. And then arts and having the kids curious. She was always exposing them to all the arts. But one thing was struck out. I know she talked about sculptures and paintings and all, but she was also in the performance art. I remember it's always used to be the first week of January, we used to have a Christmas party, on East Street. And I was one of the three wise men. I would have to dress up and send me out back in the yard and say, this is how you're going to do it. And then as the kids grew a bit older, they were also part of it. So it's just wonderful. The other memory I have about Oma and Opa was Thanksgiving. We always did Thanksgiving together, and the kids were around 3 or 4. That's when we started doing Thanksgiving, but we always opened a bottle of champagne. And that was the fun part. Before we sat down to eat, Oma, Opa, and the kids, we used to all have fun drinking champagne. And we couldn't do it over COVID as times changed, but after COVID, the first time we could visit people over Thanksgiving, Kai and I visited her at her home she was living in, and we shared a bottle of champagne, and you can see some of the pictures there. Again, it's a common, the excitement for life, no matter where. And she would bike over to our house. I think Chrissy bought her a tricycle, and she would bike over to our house when she stopped driving. And it's just been, our lives have been enriched because of her. So thank you.
My history with Mother Dolezalek, like I'll call her, goes a very long way. I want everybody to just think back about race relation over 40 years ago. There was a kid new from Africa, and I met Stephan in the bus. I said this when Daddy Dolezalek was 100. but it's worth repeating because it meant a lot to me. So I saw Stephan, the way he was dressed, tennis players, no tennis players. He had everything Adidas, the tennis rackets, the tennis case, the shoes, everything. So I looked at him, even though I was new. I got off the bus. I did not know Stephan had parked in Arlington. But we were both in the bus. I went to him, I said, where do you play? It was around the winter. So he told me he plays in downtown. He didn't go into detail. Just fortunately, where I got off, I turned around and I saw Stephan. So I said, psst. So he held up. I went to him. We exchanged numbers. I said, can we play? He said, yes. So we played. And I think he went to mom and told mom. Mom made him call me back. Said, in Hollin Hills, nobody ever beat my son. I want to meet you. So over the years, of course, we played a lot before I went south. I even went out. That was the first thing. Oma was very open. Here was I, a new kid from Africa in a new culture. She was curious. You say one thing, she's going to explore to get a lot out of you. So I said some, I left it alone. I've heard people say out here how she loved arts and culture. Our first formal outing with the family was Smithsonian. We went to Smithsonian, and then when we went to the Museum of African Arts, we're looking, I just stood up, I said, that's my father. She looked, and my father was a king, one of the 3 kings that were featured in Nigeria during the advent of independence, when they were fighting for independence. Do you know Oma went and volunteered to get a copy of that, what's it called? A copy of the, what's it called? Of the picture, not the picture, it's what do we used to have? The film that you can develop picture from.
Oh, the negative.
The negative, thank you. So I got a picture of the negative and I shared it with my brothers. They printed it over again. This was done maybe in 1961. And years later, we found out that Budweiser was using the same picture. They had reclassified it, some of the great kings of Africa, and they gave him some kind of name. So we had to go through legal means to make him stop it. That this man is still alive. He wasn't born in the 17th century and died or so forth. So, but when she loves somebody or when she knows about somebody, she just stays with that person. So then from there, she probes some more. So you didn't tell me you were friends, but it wasn't brought up. There was no reason for it. Now, I don't think all of this was more than 6 months when I was ready to go to school. I wanted to go down south where I could play tennis. And I eventually played for my college. She made a copy of the house for me. House showed me the alarm, 1984. I was here. Then she said, if you are here and you did not bring your key, she took me to where the spare key was outside. In a bottle of, in a glass bottle with rocks and all of that. And then she went to the neighbors to the right and left and said, if you ever see Martin here and we're not around, don't call anybody. This was a time that when everybody was conservative, to my understanding or to my knowledge at that time in Alexandria, there was no Black neighbors. So she told them, this is our son. And then when we first met, she insisted that I should refer to her like my other brother said, I should call her mother. So that's how I started calling her Mother Dolezalek, and I called Daddy Dolezalek. And true to her, smallish lady, very, very opinionated, what they say down south. She walks light, but she carries a big stick. Because I don't see her discussing things with Dad. She just throw it up and it will flow. So the issue with the kids and so forth, I don't know if it was discussed before, but after I left, they had the 25th anniversary in Hollin Hills. I don't know if you all could remember. Because I was now son, the cover had everybody's name, Chrissy, Eva, Stephan, and myself. And then she prepared me for what we did in Austria, their 50th anniversary. Hollin Hills was 25th anniversary of their coming to US. over there too, where is Eva's son? He said, oh, the last time I saw you was in Australia. He's probably taller than me. So she insists, and when we got there, what was funny to me, she introduced me as a child that nobody ever knew until now. So if she likes somebody, she just carries them along. She gave me 1 year to prepare because my wife and Julia didn't like to travel. She didn't like to fly. So I prepared for all that. So she made a real mark in my life when other people were kind of skeptical. I mean, things have changed a lot. You know, she loved the arts, which everybody has said here. One of the key things that I remember with her is her creativity. She never sent me a postcard that was bought. She made her own postcards and I kept them all. She would draw in the back, handwrite what she's thinking, which would be inside. I cherished that a lot, so I never threw it away. I always kept that. Then the faces, I'm glad you brought some of it. I've never seen that in my life. Make faces out of the pottery. She'll make it and gives, and she said that she's gonna make mine. Then sometimes she'll make the ones that you can put on the wall with a speaker, that water will be cut out. So she made those. She loved clay. And she loved the garden. She would take you outside in the garden and tell you stories about the goldfishes in the back, all of them one by one. So she just, wherever she's into, she liked to get everybody else into it. So to Stephan, Eva, Chris, thank you for sharing your parents with me. She's not just your parent, she's my parent too. So I love her and I love y'all all. She's resting comfortably. You know, that she continue to rest in peace. And may our memory live forever in all of us. Thank you.
I will read you a prayer of thanksgiving. Wrap up the service the way Lot had wished it for Hans and the way we are now doing this for her. Let us pray. Gracious God, before whom generations rise and pass away, we thank you for all those whom you have shared with us and who return to you. We thank you for Lotte, for the gift of her life. We give thanks for all the treasured moments and events which she shared with family and friends, making this world richer and brighter for her presence. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. Into your arms, O merciful Savior, we commend Lotte. Acknowledge, we humbly pray, a sheep of your own fold, a lamb of your own flock. Receive her into the arms of your mercy, into the blessed rest of everlasting peace, and into your glorious light. Dear Lotte, your life we honor, your departure we accept, your memory we cherish. And although there is grief today as we say goodbye, there is gratitude for your life. Dear Lotte, your life we honor, your departure we accept, your memory we cherish. And although there is grief today as we say goodbye, there is gratitude for your life. We are truly grateful for the privilege of having shared life with you. Rest now at the end of your days. Rest in the hearts and minds of all those who love you. We let you go into the wind's breath and the warmth of the sunshine. We let you go, but you will stay in our memories, our hearts and our minds. Everything you have done is still done. Everyone you have loved is still loved. Everything we've learned from you is still learned. For this we say thank you and goodbye. Lord Jesus Christ, grant that Lotte may rest in peace. Amen.
I can just add one little thing, as you said, the Our Father prayer. We often said that as children at dinner, but Lotte was very open from the religious perspective. It didn't matter if you were Catholic or Jewish or Protestant or whatever, as long as you believe in the general principles of religion and so forth. So she would also let me say a prayer that was actually Goethe's poem. Das Menschenseele gleicht dem Wasser, vom Himmel kommt es, zum Himmel steigt es, und wieder nieder zur Erde muss es ewig wechseln. The human soul is like the water. It comes from the heavens, it falls to earth, it rises back up to heaven, it comes back to earth again, always changing. So she was very open and believing in spirituality in many different forms, whether it was through poetry or her art, or through music. She was very appreciative and very accepting of various ways of seeing it. There's a squirrel inside.
Oh.
Like a spirit from nature coming in to say goodbye to Lalit. I looked to see if any of her fancy things that she always made for parties are.
I'll share one last memory of Mom coming from Germany, coming home, and my parents are out on the deck with all these animals. They're coming into the house, and Mom would say, "Look, I can pet a strange dog," and Dad would say, "Look, this bird is eating by hand." And so this is very fitting. Can I just ask you to stand before we go over and speak a blessing for all of you as well? The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.
Hi there. It's great to see you. I just wanted to share as a patient, as a patient was a wonderful patient. I was her doctor for several years and got to know her very well, and everything that everybody has shared stays with me. This is actually hanging on my wall, and it's a piece, you probably can't see it too well, but it's a piece of fabric. She loved fabric. She loved to make things. And she is exactly what everybody said. I miss her dearly, and I'm sorry that we lost touch in the last year, but boy, so glad to see you all here, the Dolezalek family, and thank you for sharing her with me as well. Amen.
Eva, Chris, and Stephan, and knew Lotte pretty well, and Hans. So it's an interesting end to my childhood in a way, I think.
Oh.
But I'll miss her, and I hope to be in touch with her kids.
Well, there's other options to put me on large screen, but hi everyone. And thanks for sharing all the stories.
That's a way to.
Hello, Christopher.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
I remember you climbing in the tree in Nantes when you was young. a young
Is
boy.
that so?
Yeah.
That's
And I
wow.
remember you in West
Mhm.
Virginia, Alexandria. Yeah. And I was
Son of-
very happy to be there today with you. And I will pray for your family, for you and for your mother and father. I remember your mother who was very nice and so on. So thanks for sharing all that. Yeah. And hello from France.
So Pete Nouailhat and his brother Serge and his mother, all were our neighbors in Virginia, right next door to us for quite
That's
a few
right.
years.
Yeah.
Became very good friends, and then we stayed in touch. And then, yes, I did visit them in Nantes. That was many good memories.
And my parents met your parents several times after when they came back in the US. Yes. And I regret that I didn't see another time I hope one time for you, but your parents, I didn't see them after the 70s. It's a long time. It's a very long time.
Yes, but I remember you well. And there's Jake and Dazi. I love Dazi. She used to come across from the neighbor's yard and hang out on the back deck.
Yeah, because he cut a hole in the fence between the two. Yeah, so that my dog could go over and love him for a while, which she would do.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear. This is Nicole from Colorado.
Yeah, I lost my picture, but I guess if I'm in the middle,
You're back.
you see me. Okay, great. So before we leave, 25 minutes before you started this ceremony, I called Chris, please send me the Zoom connection link. And 15 minutes before that, I was writing, we're supposed to do 2 lines, right? In about 1 or 2 lines. Anyway, so what I'm going to read is a message from Wolfram, my husband, and what I wanted to say. So I'm Nicole Kasemir. For those who don't know me, I'm the person, or we are the couple, Wolfram and I, that have hosted Lotte for the 3 years in Colorado. And it just happened that it was a period where she had to be in treatment for cancer, and then some other surgery, not surgery, but anyway, she broke bones. So anyway, if I read it, you're gonna get it in one shot. So Wolfram's message is, Lotte was like family to me. I have known her since my childhood, and I was happy to host her in our house in beautiful Colorado. Her lengthy visit prompted me to install for her an elevator in the center of the house. We laughed a lot with her. She was funny, even in the worst of times. I loved her. Goodbye, Lotte. Wolfram. Lotte was a model of resilience for me. During the 3 years she lived with us in Colorado, she went through all kinds of health issues, including cancer and broken bones. Rarely she would complain or accept pain meds. She wanted things to be all natural as much as possible. And she rewarded me with her sweetness, her humor, and her example of resilience and strength. Lotte, you are in my heart forever, Nicole.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. But Eva and Kate Marshall and Lottie and her family came to America, and they needed a doctor. And there were two Dr. Marshalls in the town of Billerica, Massachusetts, where they were living. And there was one called Orland and another called John. And she wanted the one that was older. She thought Orland was probably a fancy young person's name. So she chose John, which was actually my father and Eva's husband. And from then, they had a wonderful friendship because both John and Eva had just come back from Germany, and they were stationed there with the army. And the oldest son, my brother John, was born there in Germany, in Nuremberg. And anyway, we just have always had just wonderful, loving feelings for the Dolezalek family. And Lottie, was she just had an exuberance and a love of life, and always was positive, and she'll surely be missed.
Thank you, Kate. Good seeing you. Good seeing Eva.
Nice to see you and to be with you all.
Thank you. I just wanted to say quickly that the Dolezalek family is amazing. I'm sure there's so many more stories we could hear, especially about Mrs. Dolezalek. Chris and I go all the way back to Hollin Hills days, and I think it was third grade that we actually met. My family moved from Arlington to Alexandria, Virginia, and when I went into the second grade. I think it was third grade we met. Anyway, we became fast friends, and just such a nice guy, great sense of humor, still is, incredible family. And we were invited to have dinner with the Dolezaleks. And just as the speaker spoke earlier, this was in the late 60s, early 70s, and it was pretty common for me to be the only Black in the class for a time, or maybe one of two. And the Dolezaleks were just so incredibly warm and welcoming to me, mother and father, my two sisters. And we just had such a great time. And I'll share another quick story about Chris. I don't even think I've brought this up with him because we've reconnected over years, but we were playing tackle football. So, it was a long time ago in the Hollin Hills field. And I was pretty quick. I was a lot skinnier then, fast and quick. And we're playing, and I'm getting ready to go for a tackle. And I just feel this wham from the side. It was like a blind side shot. And Chris had blocked me. And it wasn't anything dirty or bad about it. But I just thought to myself, wow, he really came to play. So that was a side that I loved too, and just so nice. There's so much more I could say about them and how nice they've been to my family, especially Chris. But prayers and condolences are with you all. Such a loving family, and thank you for being so nice to me and my family for decades, not months, years, decades.
Thank you, Marco. Your family is very near and dear to all of us. I'm about to just love you all.
Thanks.
Hi, so I'm Carolyn, and this is my husband, Tim, and we bought your house on Drury Lane from Lotte and Hans.
Oh.
And one of my biggest regrets of buying the house is that they were going to move out. And I'm like, I want to be friends with you. Can't move. And they were both so incredibly welcoming. Lotte insisted that we come for tea. It was a private sale, so there wasn't a lot of hubbubaloo. And I remember the real estate agent wanted us to pay an insurance to make sure that Hans and Lotte own the house. Is like a standard thing for $300. And I'm like, they would never lie to us. No, we're not going to do that. And it was
it's just the kind of people that we knew they were, that there was never a sense of anything but joy and delight. Lotte came and visited a few years after she moved out, and I had knocked down a few walls, and I was a little concerned that she would not, she'd be startled because there were some major changes, and she was exuberant. I mean, she made me feel like I had done the best thing for the house ever. And what else about Lotte?
Well, I just want to comment, with the day we went to see the house with them, she of course had tea, and we had brought a fancy cake from Balducci's. We sat on the table and we took a tour of the garden. And so, Chris, you can imagine this is half an hour, just to go through and when we get back, the crows have attacked the cake, and Lotte laughed so hard, right, at our folly, to like, we thought we had to guard a cake, at a garden party. And so, of course, we cut off the half of the cake the crows had eaten. We had the other half. It was all fair. They were terrific people, and your family's really wonderful.
So she may not, or I may not have told you guys this, but she loved that house and that garden so much. It was not easy for her to give it up. And so she said, we need to find the right people to take over. And she was very particular. She had a very high bar. And so you should feel greatly honored. Lotte would take her prized possession from 1967 to 1998, that she put so much love and care into, and thought, I have finally found the people that I can hand this over to.
Yeah, you could read that between the lines, Chris, pretty easily.
Right.
Yeah.
And she, I was on Wall Street before coming to Virginia, and there was always a side of me that wanted to do art. And it was Lotte's hydrangeas. She had these incredible hydrangea bushes and these amazing hostas that turned me into an artist. And I have an extraordinary life because her garden gave me they were, what do you call it? The muses. And if you want to see the pictures that they're on, I have a German background as well. So my last name is Altmann, Altmann, and the website is altmann.us. And you'll see Lotte's garden there.
Oh yeah, we took Caroline made pictures of quite a bit of those of the flowers and the plants there.
Yeah.
No.
Hi, Jean.
We're Jean and Jim Kocher, and here we are in Michigan, and latecomers to this fabulous heritage of a family. We're so grateful that Chris has found Christy Kocher, and that puts us on by the shirt tails. If I could know Lotte, I would love to dance with her in her garden forever. Thank you for today.
Well, there's other options to put me on live stream, but thanks for sharing all the stories.
So that's a way to get on the big screen.
I think we're all gonna have stories now. Chris. Family years, they're all very distinctive people.
So I have Julie again, and Helga from Germany, Fritz also from Germany, Barbara Shear, a neighbor from Hollin Hills, Jessica, Barbara's daughter, that lived on the same dead end as us, Dorothy is Michael's sister. I'm not sure who A.B. Computer is. Kathleen from Martin's family, Marcy, another sister of Michael's.
Hello, Christopher.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
Good.
I remember you climbing in the tree in Nantes when
Yes.
you was young, a young boy. Yeah. And I remember you in West Virginia, Alexandria. Yeah. And I was very happy to be there today with you. and I will pray for your family, for you and for your mother and father. I remember your mother who was very nice and so on. So thanks for sharing all that. Yeah.
Well, thank you for
And
coming.
hello from France.
So Guy Nouailhat and his brother Sage and his mother all were our neighbors in Virginia, right next door to us for quite a few years. And became very good friends, and then we stayed in touch, and then yes, I did visit them in Nantes, and that was many good memories.
And my parents met your parents several times after when they came back in the US. Yes, and I regret that I didn't see another time you. I hope one time for you, but your parents, I didn't see them after the 70s. It's a long time. It's a very long time.
Yes, but I remember you well, and as I was remarking before, Oma Lotte was the last of her generation on the Dolezalek side and on the Herr side. And so now it falls upon the next generation to stay in touch and keep the family strong.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vida was a friend and neighbor in Menlo Park, and Isabel is Carol and Eva's daughter. And there's Jake and Dazi. Oma loved Dazi. She used to come across from the neighbor's yard and hang out on the back deck with Oma.
Yeah, because he had a hole in the fence. So my dog could go over and love him.
And my mom.
Which she would do. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. This is Nicole from Colorado.
Oh. Yeah, I lost my picture, but I guess if I'm in the middle.
You're back.
You're using me. Okay, great. So before we leave, 25 minutes before you started this ceremony, I called Chris, please send me the Zoom connection link. And 15 minutes before that, I was writing, we're supposed to do 2 lines, right? In about 1 or 2 lines. Anyway, so what I'm going to read is a message from Wolfram, my husband, and what I wanted to say. So I'm Nicole Kasemir, for those who don't know me. I'm the person, or we are the couple, Wolfram and I, that have hosted Lotte for the last 3 years in Colorado. And it just happened that it was a period where she had to be in treatment for cancer, and then some other surgery, not surgery, but anyway, she broke bones. So anyway, if I read it, you're gonna get it in one shot. So Wolfram's message is, Lotte was like family to me. I have known her since my childhood, and I was happy to host her in our house in beautiful Colorado. Her lengthy visit prompted me to install for her an elevator in the center of the house. We laughed a lot with her. She was funny, even in the worst of times. I loved her. Goodbye, Lotte. Welcome. Lotte was a model of resilience for me. During the 3 years she lived with us in Colorado, she went through all kinds of health issues, including cancer and broken bones. Rarely she would complain or accept pain meds. She wanted things to be all natural. as much as possible. And she rewarded me with her sweetness, her humor, and her example of resilience and strength. Lotte, you are in my heart forever, Nicole.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicole.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. And
Chris?
I'm sorry that I was not with you people today. There's tons of stuff happening here.
And now I see Kate and Eva were there. No?
Hi, we're under Hank, but
Yes.
Eva and Kate Marshall, and Lottie and her family came to America, and they needed a doctor. And there were two Dr. Marshalls in the town of Billerica, Massachusetts, where they were living. And there was one called Orland and another called John. And she wanted the one that was older. She thought Orland was probably a fancy young person's name. So she chose John, which was actually my father and Eva's husband. And from then, they had a wonderful friendship because both John and Eva had just come back from Germany, and they were stationed there with the army. And the oldest son, my brother John, was born there in Germany, in Nuremberg. And anyway, we just have always had just wonderful, loving feelings for the Dolezalek family. And Lottie, was just, she just had an exuberance and a love of life, and always was positive, and she'll surely be missed.
Thank you, Kate. Good seeing you and good seeing Eva.
Nice to see you. And good to be with you all.
Somebody
Can you
else?
hear me okay?
Yes, Michael.
I just wanted to say quickly that the Dolezalek family is amazing. I'm sure there's so many more stories we could hear, especially about Mrs. Dolezalek. Chris and I go all the way back to Hollin Hills days, and I think it was third grade that we actually met. My family moved from Arlington to Alexandria, Virginia, and when I went into the second grade. I think it was third grade we met. Anyway, we became fast friends, and just such a nice guy, great sense of humor, still is, incredible family. And we were invited to have dinner with the Dolezaleks. And just as the speaker spoke earlier, this was in the late 60s, early 70s, and it was pretty common for me to be the only black in the class for a time, or maybe one of two. And the Dolezaleks were just so incredibly warm and welcoming to me, mother and father, my two sisters, and we just had such a great time. And I'll share another quick story about Chris. I don't even think I've brought this up with him because we've reconnected over years, but we were playing tackle football, so you know it was a long time ago, in the Hollin Hills field. And I was pretty quick. I was a lot skinnier then, fast and quick, and we're playing, and I'm getting ready to go for a tackle, and I just feel this wham from the side. It was like a blind side shot, and Chris had blocked me, and it wasn't anything dirty or bad about it, but I just thought to myself, wow, he really came to play. So that was a side that I love too. It's just so nice. There's so much more I can say about them and how nice they've been to my family, especially Chris. But prayers and condolences are with you all. Such a loving family, and thank you for being so nice to me and my family for decades, not months, years, decades.
Thank you, Marco. Your family is very near and dear to all of us, and Lotte just loved you all. Thank you. I don't know if anybody else online has something to say, otherwise I can put a video on and see if I can put the camera on the screen somehow and share with you guys.
Chris, you may be able to share the screen.
Yes.
Hi, so I'm Caroline, this is my husband Tim, and we bought your house on Drury Lane from Lotte. And one of my biggest regrets of buying the house is that they were gonna move out. And I'm like, I wanna be friends with you. And she, they were both so incredibly welcoming. Lotte insisted that we come for tea. It was a private sale, so there wasn't a lot of hubbubaloo. And I remember the real estate agent wanted us to pay an insurance to make sure that Hans and Lotte own the house. It's like a standard thing for $300. And I'm like, they would never lie to us. And no, we're not gonna do that. And it's just the kind of people that we knew they were, that there was never a sense of anything but joy and delight. Lotte came and visited a few years after she moved out, and I had knocked down a few walls, and I was a little concerned that she would not, she would be startled, because there were some major changes, and she was exuberant. I mean, she made me feel like I had done the best thing for the house ever. And what else about Lotte?
Well, I just want to comment with the day we went to see the house with them, she of course had tea, and we brought a fancy cake from Balducci's. We sat on the table and we took a tour of the garden. And so, Chris, you can imagine this is half an hour, just. And when we get back, the crows had attacked the cake, and Lotte laughed so hard, right, at our folly to, like, we thought we had to guard a cake, at a garden party, and so of course we cut off the half of the cake the crows had eaten. We had the other half. It was all fair. They were terrific people. It's really wonderful.
So she may not, or I may not have told you guys this, but she loved that house and that garden so much. It was not easy for her to give it up. And so she said, we need to find the right people to take over. And she was very particular. She had a very high bar. So you should feel greatly honored that Lotte would take her prized possession from 1967 to 1998 that she put so much love and care into, and thought, I have finally found the people that I can hand this over to.
Yeah, you could read that between the lines, Chris, pretty easily.
Right. Yeah. And she, I was on Wall Street before coming to Virginia, and there was always a side of me that wanted to do art, and it was Lotte's hydrangeas. She had these incredible hydrangea bushes and these amazing hostas that turned me into an artist. And I have an extraordinary life because her garden gave me the muses. And if you want to see the pictures that they're on, I have a German background as well. So my last name is Altmann, Altmann, and the website is altmann.us, and you'll see Lotte's garden there.
Oh, yeah, we took Charlotte made pictures of quite a bit of those flowers and the plants there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now Martin has given away the alarm code. I hope you've changed it to 1984. You might want to check the bottle to see if the house key is still there.
Hey, Chris, I can't hear you, Chris, I'm sorry.
I was just saying, Martin gave away the alarm key for your house. Hopefully you've changed it from 1984.
No, it was open door policy there too.
We can probably still get in.
Well, now you'll recognize him. Hi, Gene.
We're Gene and Jim Kocher, and here we are in Michigan. And latecomers to this fabulous heritage of a family. We're so grateful that Chris has found Christy Kocher, and that puts us on by the shirt tails. If I could know Lottie, I would love to dance with her in her garden forever.
Thank you.
Thank you.